Dr. Jack. I know it's so interesting the kind of guests you bring on, but this one's close to your heart, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely. I've known Steven probably, I don't know, coming up on 7 years or so. Steven Jarrell is my son's club team coach. He and his brother, Ebed Jarrell, also they have a club here in Rhode Island, which has become, if it's not the number one club in Rhode Island. It's certainly well recognized, within the state, as well as throughout New England. I mean, you can't go to a tournament anywhere in this state, in this region, through Pennsylvania, New York, without seeing some Iron Faith members. So, welcome to the Ultimate Men's Movement, Stephen. I'm glad to have you here.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I specifically thought of you because, as I told you, I highly respect the program you guys have. I respect the mentorship you provide to my son and his teammates. But it's amazing to me, like in a time, we address a lot of issues here, that men struggle with. Men's mental health, you can't be a toxic man. Men they're allowed to have two emotions. You can't cry as a man. You can't be too sensitive. But then, if you're overly aggressive, then you're toxic. So you got to stay in this middle ground of, show no emotion, just keep taking the slaps across the face. Don't get angry, don't get sad. And I think men struggle with maintaining that perfection. And I think also young men, especially, have to be highly confused. How do I behave? Especially you get them into a combat sport, and I mean that's a great opportunity to break out the aggression and get it out of your system. But I never, rarely, extremely rarely, do you ever see anyone go into an outburst. Someone may lose and they'll throw their headpiece, their headgear,
Yep.
which is about the worst thing, on average, on whole, about one of the worst things you ever see. And in the community, even that, something like that is so highly looked down upon. It's very
Yeah.
rare. So these boys, these young men that you train, um, they maintain their composure, they maintain their discipline in a combat sport. And it's great to see. And I think it's something that really is you're a great role model, and it's a great activity for men. So I wanted to have you on to talk about how you do it, how you balance that aggression and gentlemanness.
Yeah, that's
Quite a bit
I
we
think
threw at you.
yeah, with wrestling especially it's very difficult because it's you and one person. You're out there and more or less it's a battle of willpower, and pretty much the matches decide on who's put more work in leading up to it. And when you lose, there's no one to blame. Yeah, there's going to be bad refs, there's going to be certain situations, but there's not another team. You can't blame a teammate for losing, and it's a very emotional sport. Um, I see, if you go to any wrestling tournament anywhere in the country, you'll see uh, more boys crying at that than you've ever seen in your entire life.
Yeah.
Losing a match that they thought they were going to win, and I think as you wrestle more, you kind of get a better perspective on, the winning and losing isn't the end all be all. It's really about who you become from the wrestling and how you overcome some of these losses and being humble when you win. It is not an easy sport. And, as a coach, what I'm looking for is intensity from my guys and aggression, but being respectful at the same time, and um, being humble when you win. I mean, there's kind of a
Yeah.
lot of things to learn from it, but it's a very difficult sport. And in my opinion, I think every single kid should wrestle for a couple of years minimum. I would say till they finish high school, but
Yeah. No,
that's
I
just
would
my opinion.
I would agree. And James has been doing it since he was 6 years old. And what a transition he's made in the process. But I remember getting out of the car for his first match, and he already has his little singlet on. And I'm nervous. I'm more nervous than he is. He's clueless to the whole thing, and I get out of the car and, I've got my arm around him like, bud, I just want to tell you, win or lose, I'm the proudest father out here. And I always tell the story, that, and I've said that ever since, but, he wins his first match and I was the one in his corner, tears going down my eyes. You're like, bud, I love you, man. He won his first match, 6 years old. I was a slobbering mess. But I think it was his eighth grade year. The thing that really impressed me was, and I was wrong about that. Win or lose, I'm the proudest father because his eighth grade year, he ended up having I think he was undefeated this eighth grade season. He gets into the final. He already won one of the pathways. There's USA wrestling and then there's the
Yep.
school wrestling. And I think he already won the state championship in the USA wrestling. And he gets into the school and he gets pinned in the second period. Um, a kid got an underhook on him and pinned him down. And of course you're crushed. He gets up, he walks to the middle, takes his anklet off, you know, other kid's hand is raised. James goes to the other coach, shakes his hand, goes to his own coach and says, "Now I know what I have to work on for next year." Like he maintained his composure. And I say I'm wrong because him losing the way he lost, I was prouder of him than I would have been had he won, the second title. So it's maintaining that, composure and keeping things, in control while you're also going through such an emotional event, just,
Yeah.
on man. It's
And
it's
I,
impressive.
yeah, and on top of it too with the wrestling, it's like the losing physically hurts.
Yeah.
It's there's the emotional side of it, which I think is more painful, but there's the losing side where it's like you got beat up in the match. You got held in positions that were painful to get out of. Maybe you couldn't get out of them. So on top of the just losing, it's also the physical pain of it as well. And I had a similar situation when I was in seventh grade. I went and won the school states, and then I went to a random tournament after. I didn't really know about USA Wrestling. I was kind of on the newer side, and I wrestled this kid who just beat the crap out of me. I mean, I couldn't score a single point, and here I am, like 2 weeks before I won states. I think I'm on top of the world. I go to this random tournament, down the street, and it was like this underground wrestling team, and they just whooped me. And I remember going to my coaches after and being like, "What? How is that even possible? I just won states." And the next day, we showed up to that club. We're like, "All right, we got to train here." And that was my father-in-law's club, Mayo Quanchi.
Oh,
I ended
wow.
up marrying his daughter. Yeah,
That's great.
Wow. And that's such an interesting story that happened to you, but you saw such an importance that just because you won states didn't mean you're the best wrestler out there.
yeah, yeah. The best. It was the best that day on this tiny little pool. When I got started into wrestling, you don't really realize how small Rhode Island wrestling was, especially at the time. It's much bigger now. But, I won states and I thought like, oh, that was the end all be all. But it's like there's many more layers above that, New England level, national level that I had no clue about. And never mind that, there was a kid in that town that could beat me, but he just didn't compete at the school states.
Yeah. Now tell us about your club. We've gone into some general, but your club, you've made a significant name for yourself, as I mentioned in the intro, for yourself and your club, and both you and Ebed are, icons of Rhode Island wrestling right now. So tell us about your club, when it started, how it began, and how you ended up getting where you are right now.
Yeah. So I opened up in 2019, about 2 months before COVID. And I was running practices out of Johnson and Wales. I was just renting the space by the hour. I had, one or two students, and I was trying to recruit people in. And I was fresh off of taking second in the country for Division III. So when I opened the club, I thought, all these people are going to pour in. It's going to be this easy thing. Everyone's going to want to come train for me. And it was the complete opposite. I announced I'm starting the club. I'm excited about it. And for like 3 weeks straight, I had almost nobody. And I remember writing in my journal, I was keeping track of how many people at practice. And I went and looked back at it. It was like 2 people, 1 person, 4 people, 0, 0, 0. And I was like, all right, this is a problem. So I started reaching out to the middle schools. It was LaSalle and a few other ones. And I was like, hey, come to my club practice. I'll run these guys through a practice. When they would come in, I would record to make it look like I had some guys. I'm like, all right, I got some people. And I used that to kind of pull some more people in. And just when I started gaining some momentum, I had probably 15 students at the time. COVID hits, I get an email and we're shut down. So from there, it was about 8 months before we reopened. And it was just me. So I opened originally just me. And then when we reopened, it was me and my brother Ebed. So he was finishing. He finished college. He moved back for the time being, and we started saying like, hey, like we got to get this club up and running. And so I started looking at spaces in the area. I find a space that was 11,000 square feet, which is a massive space. I had no clue what I was doing. And I go to look at the space. I'm like, yeah, the space is nice, but there's no chance we're ever, like, we can't occupy that much space. That's insane. Like, what do we need? 2,000 square feet. And the landlord was like, hey, well, maybe we can work something out. We'll give you a couple months free. And then, kind of tick you up into full rent. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And my approach in this was, what's the worst that happens? I go out of business, I go bankrupt. I'm like, I own nothing. I don't have a house. I have a car that's worth $2,000. Like, I have nothing to lose. I live with my parents. So for me, looking at this was like, I have absolutely nothing to lose. What's the worst that happens? And so we kind of pulled the trigger on that and kicked it up to the point where it was stable. We split the space and rented the other half out to somebody. And we rolled that up to about where it is now at 125 students. And then we opened up the second location in Bristol. And really how we came upon the second location was there was a club that was I won't say going out of business. The head coach had gotten a position in a college, so he was going to shut it down. And so I had reached out to him and was talking some about possibly taking over or, keeping his guys there. That ended up falling through. And my brother Ebed said, if we did open a second location, is that truly the space? Like, is that where the town we'd want to be in? Is that the best location for us? And we kind of decided, no, it wasn't really a location we liked very much. And he ended up he found like 3 spaces in Bristol. And we ended up pulling the trigger within about 2 weeks on the second location.
Yeah, and they've grown fine. They've grown tremendously. I remember your first one up in Warwick on the second floor up there, and there's a bunch of like chairs just scattered around the side, and mat in the middle. Kind of pretty unorganized. But now, I mean, you've got your name, your logo all over the place. There's hitting bags. Your wife runs jujitsu classes out of there as well, too, right? Is it jujitsu?
Yes.
Or am I
So
getting
she was running. So at one point she was running judo classes.
Judo.
Evan and I were running wrestling, and then we also had jujitsu all in the same gym. And we made the decision to stop the judo and jujitsu and just focus on the wrestling, because it's very hard to do one thing. It's really hard to do anything well. Never mind running 3 separate programs in the same gym where all 3 programs need the same time slots. And so you're kind of sacrificing one program for the other. And we decided it made a little more sense to strictly focus on the wrestling. And in the short term, those next couple of months, we lost probably 40 members. We had a lot of members in jiu-jitsu. The jiu-jitsu coach opened up his own gym, and we passed everyone off to him, and he's doing well now. But in the long term, it's allowed us to have a singular focus and be like, what is our goal? What are we good at? And it's like, we know how to teach people how to wrestle, and that's what we do. And it just made it so like we do one thing and we do one thing the best we can. Anything else that's not that is a distraction, and we don't even consider it.
Yeah. And
And
got,
I think that's important, especially to you scale to a certain point. Then when you scale and you have to have other facilities or wherever, then you go to something else. But if this is where everything else is, one thing's losing its focus for something else, you got to stay focused.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, it's like I ask, I tell the kids that really want to get good at wrestling, you've got to make sacrifices. And the sacrifices to me are not, hey, give up video games or, stop staying up late, because that's probably just stuff people should do. It's more, you have two good opportunities. You could be a good football player, you could be a good wrestler, or maybe a soccer player, but you only have enough time to really get good at one of them. Especially if you're starting kind of later in if you're starting in high school, you really don't have that much time. If you've been playing, two sports since you're 6 years old, you could get very good at both. But to me, a sacrifice is you have two good options and you have to go all in on one. And to me, that's kind of the sacrifice that's hard, not giving up video games or going to bed on time.
and it's a full-time job for you, including weekends. You do a lot of travel.
Yep.
You sent me some stats, which I think, I thought that I'd met you earlier. I said, what did I say? 7, 8 years, but you're right. It was like post 2000, 2020,
Yep.
post COVID when we started. So you say currently, these are the stats you sent me. You got two clubs one in Bristol, one in Warwick. You got 221 active members. But you say there's been over 750 students that have gone through your program. And a lot of them are my son is coaching for you too. So you've got and it was great to see, Coach James, here are the little kids, and
Yeah.
he's got a couple little he's got his little groupies that are sitting next to him every time at the matches and stuff. So that's another thing that really raises his ego, his identity. But talk about how many guys you've sent to states, how many guys you've sent to nationals, because you're doing this year round, and like I
Yeah.
said, in a short period of time, you've really had a tremendous impact in Rhode Island, but also nationally.
Yeah. So we've had about 750 people come through our program, a lot of which have graduated. Some have started and stopped, whether they quit wrestling or, a lot of times when someone stops wrestling, it's usually for something else. Very rarely does a kid stop wrestling and then go home and do nothing. And in the instances that they do, that's always a really, really bad decision. But there are a lot of people who say, hey, maybe I like this other sport more, and, I'm going to focus on that. And then a lot of people right now, where some people now are on break during high school season because they just can't make both practices. So, and that's only since we started tracking, maybe it's closer to 1,000, but that's how many people have been through since we started tracking. In terms of, how many guys go to states and place and the national stuff, it's a little harder to keep track of. I would say at the high school level, since we've started, we've kind of had one or two state champs each year ish. Last year, last year we didn't have anybody win. We had a lot of guys who were close, but this year we're in a spot where I think we have 8 that have the potential. There's more that have the potential, but I think there's 8 guys on paper that are in a very good spot to win states for high school. And then, another 40 that will probably place, if not more. And then at the youth level, and the middle school and youth level, that's kind of where we're really starting to ramp up. Last year was the first year we won states for youth, and we won every single age group. So we won 15U, 12U, 10U, 8U. The year before that, we didn't win anything. And this year, I think our team is even better than last year. So we'll see how it plays out, but I think our guys will compete well. And then we'll have New England's and then nationals. And for nationals, there's two events we go to as a team. We have individual nationals in Virginia Beach, and then we have national duels. And so for national duels, I think this year we might take 90 kids. So we'll have 3 high school teams, 1 middle school team, and probably 2 youth.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
And
is this so? Because I'm familiar with the basketball side of AAU. When Dr. Jack talks club, is it AAU or they don't call it that in wrestling?
yeah, pretty much. It's pretty much that. So you have your school leagues, and then you have your club leagues. And for Rhode Island, at least, most of the high schools and middle schools have a wrestling team. So they'll compete with their school team, and then they'll train in addition with us, and then they'll compete with us as well. And the school season for high school, middle school is 2 to 3 months. So it's not very long. So they'll compete there. And then once that finishes, they'll compete with us. And we have some students who wrestle 5 or 6 days a week with their school, compete twice a week, and then, wrestle another 3 or 4 times a week with us on top of that. So
Yeah.
they're doing double sessions a couple times a week.
And these tournaments, down in Virginia Beach, are unbelievable, Neil. I mean, you walk in there's tens of thousands of people. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know how many. The last time
Wow.
I happened to run into a guy I was stationed in the military with in 2000. Like we were on the same flag football team, and I'm walking through there, and I see this dude, and I'm like, "Is that Stacy?" And I'm like, "Can't be," And I go up, and we just hugged it out, and like I said, you find people from all over the world. I saw it and down in Greensboro. I met another buddy of mine from undergrad. So it's huge. Tens of thousands of people, and hundreds of mats everywhere. And I said, for you to bring 95 guys, that's no small feat. Because
Yeah.
you got to pay for hotels and it's several days on Virginia Beach and the dedication that goes into it. So, what a following from 0 to 2 people in your class in 2020, 2021 to, now you got you're bringing 90 to nationals. That's really impressive.
Yeah. It is definitely very exciting. And the the nice thing with some of these national events too is you'll see some of the same guys. So like you
Mhm.
might wrestle against someone in Virginia Beach, and then you go to another national event and you find, oh, yeah, I know that same kid I wrestled. I see him, and so
Yeah.
you almost start building these friendships with people you would have never known
Yeah. And there's kids
because
from
you just kind of see
Oklahoma.
each other. Yeah.
Yeah, down in Virginia Beach, I remember seeing guys from Oklahoma, Florida, from all over the country. And I think, the thing that I really love about wrestling that I think, you know, not everybody's athletic. Not everybody can make the basketball team. You got 5 guys on the team. Not everyone can make the football team. Um, but with wrestling, you don't have to be a certain size. Some of the,
Yeah.
you can be a 98 pounder and be a badass. Where some of these guys, they really find their calling, I think. I think it's great for young men's, identity, for their confidence. They get a little swagger going on, especially in high school, especially being if you're a
Yeah.
smaller guy and you're getting, sand kicked in your face at the beach, so to speak, you become a wrestler, you start getting that cauliflower ear. Suddenly people are backing off. I think it's great for confidence. And I think men and young boys, I think really need that stuff, especially at that critical period in their lives, middle school, they're going through, puberty, trying to talk to girls, and I think wrestling is a great way to really focus on yourself, both physically and mentally. And you get that reputation of being a wrestler. And I talk to so many people that, you know, you say my son wrestles and like, damn, that's one of the toughest sports. The discipline that goes into it.
Hmm.
Employers look for wrestlers, or they see a good wrestler. They know they're going to have some dedication and some discipline out of that person.
Yeah. And the confidence you get from wrestling is not this fake, like, looking in the mirror saying, positive stuff to yourself. I'm the greatest, this, that, and the other. It's you get the confidence from the work you put in. It's like you get the confidence from where knowing where you started and where you are now and how you got stronger and how you developed and your grit and your mental toughness. And so to me, the confidence you get in wrestling is earned and blood, sweat, and tears. And it this
It's
side,
authentic.
yeah. And you kind of walk around, something I never really thought about. It's like a lot of people walk around, or I say a lot of kids walk around in school and they're afraid, worried about getting beat up, can't really defend themselves. And that was not an experience I had. Like I started wrestling pretty much right when I went to school. I was homeschooled before that. So I went to school. I started wrestling 6th grade, and I never had an experience where I was bullied or felt afraid in school because of something like that. And we get a lot of people that come in that maybe they were bullied in school or they were afraid in school. And within a year, it's like they're walking around with their head up, they've got confidence. And a lot of times it's just, the confidence alone is what will kind of back some of those bullies off, or, kind of be a warning. But you get that confidence from the work you put in.
I mean, they're
So,
doing it,
yeah,
I mean, a lot of kids are doing it 3, 4 days a week. So, how many times are you going to get in a fight in high school? But when you're in a fight every day after school, that's a controlled fight, it becomes no big deal for you. So you get into a situation, you're like, all right, I can handle this,
right.
right?
Yeah.
Now, with the resurgence of different sports than when, probably Dr. Jack was wrestling and even professional wrestling when I was, UFC was really just in its beginning phases. How many of these kids are wanting to go into full combat sports at one point?
Yeah. A lot of the youth kids, a lot of the younger kids come in, they're like, oh, I want to fight in the UFC. I want to do MMA. Where, yeah, it was not a thing when I was in high school, middle school, it was not a thing. The only fights people got into or that you knew about were like, some after school fight or something. But yeah, kids come in and it's a goal of theirs. Yeah. I wouldn't say all of them, but there definitely is a portion of kids that start wrestling, or like, I want to get into the UFC. I want to fight.
Now, my question to you is: the money's still not that great for these guys getting killed.
Yeah.
The money is still not for the top talent versus other sports.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of people I went to college with got into it, and people have asked me, oh, why don't you go fight? And there's a lot of easier ways to make money. Almost any job,
Isn't that terrible? Well,
it's
how they get away with that versus like WWE is starting to pay their guys, but still not to the extent that they should, except certain talent.
I think the longer UFC is around, the more money there'll be
They need
for
a union like
everybody.
sports.
Whether it's that, I'm not super familiar with a lot
The
of union
sports
stuff
unions
and
have done
sports
really
bodies.
well to save the athletes from getting paid compared to the promoters. Yeah.
But they went
Yeah.
through years of that. The professional football players, the hockey players, they were logging and delivering beer in the off season, even up until the 70s. So I mean, when did football start? 1900, early 1900, and hockey, who knows what, but you're right, is it up until the 70s and 80s, these guys were still professional hockey was a part-time job, professional football was part-time.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times with wrestling, from people that I know, it wasn't a sport you got into because you're like, I'm gonna go be good at wrestling and it's gonna make me a lot of money. With football, with basketball, with baseball, you're kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna go be, in the NFL, I'm gonna make crazy money. Uh but I think people are starting to see it, and I think it does impact the sport. I think more people get into it because there is some sort of financial opportunity. But I think that uh, it's just there's so few people. I mean, there's so few people who make serious money in UFC. There's so few people who make serious money in wrestling, although it's growing. And even with all of that, with sports, like, it comes to an end. like your wrestling career comes to an end, your football comes to an end, and it rarely comes to the end that you want. It's usually some,
Think of the
bad
concussions,
injury.
the
Yeah.
concussions, and all the different things in your sport. If you talk about wrestling to MMA, you could die in the ring. I mean, you're
Yeah.
taking a lot of risks for sure.
Hey, we got a special guest appearance pop up on here. Steven was just telling us about he's the best coach with Iron Faith, and how, he's been the brainchild, the energy, the inspiration, the
Yeah.
Lord of Lords at Iron Faith, and you're his worthy sidekick. Is this correct, Ebed? Welcome to the Ultimate Men's Movement.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That's definitely not correct. No, it is. He's the man. Yeah, I'm the humble one. I'll say that, Give a
Yeah.
lot of
Well,
I
this
am.
is Ebed Gerald, the good looking brother of the two.
Yeah.
So welcome. We've gone through a lot, Ebed. Let's hear from you. What's inspired you most in running this club over the past several years? What are your stories? What are your inspirations that really that touch you and make this all worthwhile for you?
Yeah, definitely. So after college, I actually was an engineer for a couple of years while I was running the club. And for me, I found a little bit of a lack of purpose in what I was doing. I think some people can find purpose in whatever, in the engineering or whatever field they're in. But I was constantly looking forward to coaching, helping these kids. I saw a quicker impact on my work I was doing as a coach. Seeing a kid improve with wrestling, or his behavior change, or his grades get better, versus, the company I was working for. It's a bigger company and you couldn't really see exactly what your impact was. So for me, that was really what made me more inspired and really wanting to go all in with the wrestling club and not spend my time with the engineering. Now that I've kind of went full force with the club for the past, 4 or 5 years, I mean, the best thing is really seeing kids' beliefs and their character change. So,
And also,
obviously,
I also wanted to highlight, because we're, been going for a little while here, but the online institute, the online training, the Instagram, like you guys have hit Meta up, you've hit Facebook, really made a huge impact online. And I had a couple experiences where I don't know who it was, and they quickly knew when I said my son wrestled for Iron Faith. They're like, yeah, I follow that guy, and he was, I think the person I was talking to was like in Phoenix or something. So tell us a little bit about that, like how you've managed to trade this, to switch this from, second floor in a little old warehouse to now you're a national online presence.
yeah. So when I first was making online content, my thought was, what could I make that would help my current members? I think a lot of people, when they go into the online space and they're trying to grow a brand, they don't focus enough on what would help people. They focus on, maybe they're trying to grow as a brand, but they're trying to gatekeep stuff. Oh, I can't share that information. I got to keep that behind a paywall. I got to have people pay for that stuff. But the more information that I could give out that actually helps people, the bigger the brand grows. Especially when you're just starting out. How is anybody going to trust you, want to buy from you, if you don't help them first? People think, oh, I should get paid first before I help you out. In the online space, in order to build credibility, you actually have to give everything away for free. You
Yeah,
give
totally.
all the best stuff, every detail. You give the PDFs away. You make the best instructional ever that everyone else is selling, and you give it away for free. And that's what we have in our comments. Man, I can't believe this is for free. All this helped my kid win a state championship. And then when we go and offer something like an online academy or sell a t-shirt, just because of the goodwill that we've built up and actually providing valuable content, they can't help but buy. They trust us. We've already helped them. right? Versus the other way where you're like, you've just asking for people to buy from you and buy this instructional, and oh, here's a little piece of it, but you got to buy the whole thing over here. A lot of that's like, yeah, I haven't built enough. You haven't built enough trust with me. I think I'm going to go to the next video. I'm going to scroll down to the next
Yeah.
Instagram video.
You need to be telling people this stuff. And I'm going to, as owning a digital agency, I know exactly what the problem is. People don't want to give everything away, but see, you give everything away, they're still not going to copy it. They're going to still come back to you. They're still
Yeah.
going to say, I can't do this. This is too much information. Yeah, it helped me a little bit, but I want more. And that's and more watch time, more people interested in the specific stuff. And if you niche in the right way, you're going to kill it. But it's the time too. You can't just
Yeah.
think it. You post a couple videos and it's going to go viral. It's putting the time, the effort, and you have a community. How important is it to have a community? Think about how many wrestlers you have in your club, their relatives, their family members, all those things. How important is to build a community to build a great club?
Yeah, I mean, the community is super important, especially to get people to stick for a long time. And even with the online side, it's like you talked about being able to do this for a long time, right? Not just posting a couple of viral videos or having your first couple of practices. Over time, it compounds because people actually get results. Like, and then they trust you and then they keep going with you. So like with the online side, those people need to watch your video, implement it in practice for maybe a year, right? And then they get a result. Or say you're giving business advice or you're giving advice about personal growth. It takes some time to even implement all this advice that you're sharing with them for them to get results. And then the trust is built. You know, the trust is built from when they actually get some wins underneath their belt. When you've shared something valuable, they've used it. So it takes year after year. And then it takes improvement too, because when you first start out, like when you guys post content, you'll see like, oh, nobody liked that one. Oh, this video got 100 views. The other one only got 5. Let me do another video on that topic. Let me keep expanding, because what the views and the likes and the comments do is they share with the audience, or they share with you that this is what they want. They value this. So you can't be, I don't know if the egotistical is the right word, but you can't think like, oh, I know what's best. They'll tell you what's best. They'll tell you what they want based on if they're going to even watch in the first place. And don't get mad at the algorithm or anything else like that. The algorithm is giving people what they think is valuable. So if you're not getting views, it's generally there might be some things going on with like getting shadow banned, but in general, it's because nobody cared about your video is the reality of it. So it's nice because you can get feedback very quickly. Now, as far as the community goes with the in-person stuff, like you're talking about, you have to build a certain culture too. You have to be able to, when you're talking with these kids, you have to protect the culture at the club. And maybe Steven can touch on this a little bit, where you have a certain culture that you're trying to build. You want people to, value hard work. You want people to be respectful. And one of the things that really, I haven't had to do it, Steven's had to do it, but when the wrong person or the wrong person's in the club, you got to get them out. When the wrong person or the wrong family is messing with your other kids, I don't care how athletic, I don't think care if he's a superstar person. I've heard this in business as well. You got a superstar salesperson, but he's bitter. He's like, not friendly to be around, gonna ruin the whole team. So luckily for my location, everyone like that ends up just leaving. I don't have to have the hard conversation. But Steven's had to do stuff like that. I don't know if Steven can touch on that as well.
Yeah. So when we first started, I remember we had someone in our club who was just a bad fit. The kid was a little wild, behavioral wise. Parents weren't doing much to help, if anything, making it worse. And because of keeping him in the club for too long, we ended up losing a lot of other members. We had other people that were good customers quit or leave because we had this bad customer staying with us, because we were so afraid, like we're not making enough money to, have anybody leave. And now that we're in a position financially where we're doing pretty good, it's much easier to be like, if this person is the wrong fit, you're gone. And there's no hard feelings. On my end, it's not I dislike you, you have to leave. It's, hey, this is the wrong fit for you. Maybe there's another club that fits better for you, or maybe there's something else. But at this time, this is not the right fit. And I've asked the past 2 years here a handful of people to step out. And it's not, and again, it's not out of anger. It's not that I dislike that person. It's just the wrong fit. And sometimes there's another place that's a better fit for them, and that's fine too. But we do have a certain culture we're looking for, and a certain student we're looking for. And if it's like if your kid doesn't fit this, it's just not going to be good. And so even now we have the youth kids try classes out before they sign up, because we want to make sure, one, is it the right fit for you guys? Does everything that we have make sense for what you're looking for? But at the same time, for us, is this going to be the right student? Do they actually enjoy the wrestling? Can they pay attention? Are the parents supportive? The last thing you want is the wrong kind of kid in your program, and that wrong culture spreading quickly amongst 100 people. I mean, once the culture goes south, it is, I wouldn't really know exactly how to change that.
Right.
Yeah. And you're right. That's long-term damage. You got to control those. That's, because what I said, what we talked about in the beginning, it's like, it's very rare to see at a tournament anyone really going off, and if they do, they get the complete team shun over that behavior. It's just not accepted, it's just interesting. Well, I think we've been going for a little while. I mean, I think it's been great having both of you. I'm glad you could make it, Eben.
Yeah.
I mean, I think your contribution has been tremendous. And we can have you back. But how do people get a hold of you? Like, you have a website? You just do mostly socials, and we can post this in the show notes. What's the best way to get a hold of you guys if someone wants to become a Rhode Island wrestler?
Yeah, if you're local and you want to maybe try out a practice or see what we're about, ironfaith.com. If you want to check out our videos, Iron Faith Wrestling on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, anywhere. You look up Iron Faith Wrestling and you'll find something.
I guess that's anywhere. That's a good answer. You guys, well, how many followers do you each have? I know with your 3 different sites, you each have a 10 to 40,000 viewers.
Yeah, in total, between all of the accounts, we're just over 500,000.
That's fantastic.
99% of it coming from Evan and his efforts, and Will, who records and edits our videos as well. I'm more a tag along.
500,000 followers, or what do you
followers?
Yeah.
Followers, 500,000.
So where's your biggest platform?
Oh.
Evan's Instagram, the YouTube, Evan's Facebook, everything Evan did, and then I'm, a couple ticks below that.
I got it.
That's great. I didn't realize it was that huge. That's incredible.
Yeah, you go and create content that people are looking for and do the right content, because he sounds like he knows what he's talking about. That's it. That's the big thing. But you have to stay the game. At the end of the day, if you do marketing in any type of way and you want to be all in, you got to be all in. I've been all in on my radio show to get to this big syndication and be very well known, but I've done it for over 15 years and done 20,000 interviews. Now, if I want to do what Ebbets done in social media, I would not have the time, nor would I want at that time. But that is it. You got to put the time in. You got to figure out something that's great for your audience, and you consistently stay the game, because it doesn't happen overnight. And when people say it happens overnight, it's either time or money. You spend ad dollars or you spend time. There's 2 options to get to that level and still do it right and provide value. Because if you don't provide value, it's going to die flat out. Boom, you're done. It's going to not do anything. And that's the key thing, guys. So interesting. You guys should, how much have you been monetizing your YouTube channel? You have to tell me off air, because I have another streaming network potentially for you guys if you're looking to create content and more revenue generating opportunities. Because I work with a streaming network that's TV streaming that Jack's show is going to go on and stuff like that we're trying to become the next podcast Netflix. What podcasts are launching in Netflix, we're taking that opportunity because YouTube doesn't monetize right. And we're trying to provide it for creators and opportunities. So there you go. So best place to go for Jack is very simple, right? The Ultimate Men's Movement. I mean, I have to build that website for you. TheUltimateMen'sClinic.com, and make sure you follow in your New Bedford, Massachusetts. But online, you could contact Dr. Jack anywhere. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks again.
Thank you for having us.
That was